And now, ladies and gentlemen, in my latest presentation of this book that I'm reading to you, I would like to say, welcome. And for those who are chuckling and laughing behind the scenes, because I've never said this before, and I'm terribly nervous,
don't be nervous.
and I don't know what's going to follow what it is that I'm saying, other than the fact that I'm going to be reading to you chapter 4. Oh, yes, chapter 4 of Brazilian Nights.
Got it. Okay.
And
let's see if I can zoom in here.
If we can have a zoom,
you can zoom.
Then
there you go.
We'll know better what it is that we. In case anyone is wondering why it is that I'm dressed like someone at the North Pole in Southern California, it's because it's chilly out here.
Hello.
And I don't know why.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Okay.
That's not for me to know and you to find out.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay, so here it is. Brazilian Nights, chapter 4. I'm going to seat myself down at this chair.
Yes.
This is my little pillow in my back.
I see.
This is my little pillow for my
derrière.
For my boo-boo. Or as you say in French,
derrière.
As you can see, Zola Salena, the person who's videoing this, is conversant in French.
Yeah. Oui, oui.
And I'm conversant in
so many other things.
So many other things.
All right, let's see here.
Oh, God, you way ahead of me.
All right.
Okay, here we go. Without further ado, for those who've been following, you know that Valonga Prince has been the CEO of something called Stress Management Incorporated. And the easiest, quickest explanation I can offer is that he is someone who is involved with a stress management corporation who said, why am I de-stressing everyone else and I'm not taking advantage of that? So she was off on a 3-year hiatus. We're starting off in Brazil with Master Juízo because she was interested in Capoeira Angola. And she winds up in Spain with, oh my God, with Machete, the bullfighter. And now there's Armando Bá, because she's interested in the Conga. This is not a Conga, but I'm going to say it could be.
Especially from a kid's point of view.
From a kid's point of view. Oh, excellent. As you can see, I have a commentator who's willing to add things to the things that I'm not adding. Brazilian Nights, chapter 4. She was feeling the rhythm better. She could tell because Master Bá didn't find it necessary to correct her as often. 3 months of simple exercises. Left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand. Simple rhythms. Today, Valonga, we are going to sit in the back under the tree and play a little wawanko. Okie dokie? First, I'm going to carry the rhythm, and you will play the quinto. Hey, not yet. Oh, wait a minute. Don't be in a hurry to play the quinto. You have to carry the rhythm with me, and then you play the quinto. Let's go hit it. She helped carry his drums out into the backyard, a spacious area filled with several banana trees and other tropical vegetation. It wasn't cutely manicured and gave the appearance of a low-level jungle.
Why not?
He brought a fifth of rum and half a bottle of Coke out. that is Coca-Cola,
Mm-hmm.
placed it. No, wait, no, don't be impatient. This is not going to work if you are impatient. You know? Okay, cool it.
Mm-hmm.
He brought a fifth of rum and a half bottle of Coke out, placed them on a nearby table. We may need this before the session is over. Children of all ages and sizes immediately put in an appearance, followed by a few curious adults. Anything that happened in and around Armando Bá's house was always news.
Mm-hmm.
He sat across from her and with the first strokes wove a wall of lush rhythm around her. He made it impossible not to play.
Mm-hmm.
He nodded with his chin for her to come in. The solid wall of rhythm intimidated her for a few beats. He nodded a little more urgently and frowned. She came in on time. Self-consciously aware of how elementary her Quinto ideas were. Don't play a lot. Better a few things well than lots of stuff. A few more people arrived, smiling at the sight of the old master and his American student. After 5 minutes, she was coated with a fine film of perspiration, and her arms felt like dead weights. Playing with the master, you dig it?
Yeah.
A couple of teenagers wandered into the yard, bowed politely to the drummers, and began to dance.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of the smaller children began to imitate them. Valonga suddenly felt her arms lighten, and her hands seemed to be fluttering onto the drum heads without any conscious effort on her part. Bá smiled. What do you say? We changed, okay?
Uh-huh.
She was flattered by the applause and didn't know whether to bow, smile, or pretend not to hear.
Mm.
Smile a little longer. The people are pleased with you.
Mm.
She could tell from the way he phrased the statement that he was also pleased.
Mm.
They took a little break to sip some rum.
Mm.
This is not rum in this glass.
Mm.
It's ginger beer.
Uh-huh. Without the gin. Without the gin. Okay.
The backyard was suddenly filled with the villagers of Bocagrande.
Mm-hmm.
They laughed, shook her hand, smiled at her, offered eloquent toasts for her efforts. Senor Bá, what did he say? He said he thought you played very well, very good. Is that all?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that enough? You want him to say you play like me?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Japan, after Cuba, felt like a cultural corset.
Hmm.
She strolled the streets of Okayama, subconsciously listening for the sound of the Conga, the chatter of bongos, or the cling-clang of the agogo.
Mm.
You will think about us here in Bocagrande. We'll be in your mind. She had made a fine-tuned decision not to delay her motion. Once she reached a certain level, not to delay after she had reached a certain point of development with the drum.
Mm-hmm.
Bá understood.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what are you trying to do? Make yourself feel bad? Sheep. He pronounced it, sheep.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hear? You know what I mean? You came to nibble on the edge of the drum with Papa Bá. Now you want to go. It's okay. It's okay. Sure. It's okay. You didn't come here pretending to be a serious student of the drum.
Oh.
She flinched involuntarily, accepting his correct assessment of her as a non-serious student.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. Let's get real about it here.
Mm-hmm.
how much of the drum can you really get under your belt in 3-4 months?
Mm-hmm.
You're right. You know that? Hey, you bet your dirty drawers I'm right. But I gotta say this to you, I never had a student with a mind like yours, Valonga. If you wanted to spend the time, you could become a top flight drummer, a conguero. How long would it take? Yeah, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years. She passed the narrow side street and walked back to it. Someone was playing a drum. She listened closely. No Koto master here, just someone banging a pair of Christmas tree bongos. She continued her search. The taxi driver wasn't certain where 369 was. When you go to Tokyo and you go to different places, there are no street addresses. People have to know where they have to know where you have to know where you have to go.
Okay.
Otherwise, the taxi driver wasn't certain where 369 was. He had simply overcharged her, politely opened the door of his vehicle, let her out, and advised her to ask people, this Eta district, everybody know Koto master. She had landed in Tokyo 2 days before and immediately taken a train to Okayama, the home of Master Kimio Eta, the blind man who was acknowledged to be one of the greatest Koto players in the world. Children in their neat uniforms of blue and white pointed at her and giggled, "Gaijin! Gaijin!" Foreigner. She smiled in reply and continued wandering. There were, strangely enough, addresses in English for her to be encouraged. She wasn't feeling particularly discouraged for some reason. The town was picturesque, the people provincial but not obnoxious, and she felt she would be able to find Master Eta. It was in her bones. She turned the corner and stood there, her lower jaw slack, shocked at the sight of the giant cutout of Colonel Sanders. Well, I'll be damned. She canceled out her ambivalence and walked through the doors anyway. What the hell? A piece of chicken is a piece of chicken. The business of the place seemed to suspend itself. When she entered, she suddenly felt like a weird kind of celebrity. All eyes turned to stare at her. It was obvious they didn't serve gaijin often. And probably they'd never seen an African-American gaijin before. Valonga studied the pictures of the pieces of chicken. Such a good idea to show the food. One picture is worth 1,000 words. She was forced to the head of the line by a short queue of fried chicken lovers. She made attempts to decline, but they ignored her and bowed her to the front anyway.
Want to see what she's going to order? I'll have some of that.
Hey, you invented this. The young man behind the counter brightened and self-consciously straightened his cap as she wavered between the thick pieces of chicken with coleslaw or the luncheon special with mashed potatoes and gravy. "I am English," the man behind the counter spoke, jarring her decision to choose his luncheon special. "Really?" "Yes, I can help you." The man's heavy accent and his super sincere manner almost caused her to laugh, but she checked the impulse. Why make enemies on your first day in town? "Yes, you do speak English quite well. You may be able to help me." He bowed slightly, indicating his willingness to serve. She decided impulsively to make a stab in the dark. "Do you know where Master Kimio Eta lives?" The superficial grin disappeared from his face as the meaning of her question sank in. Also, yes, Master Eta, I know. Can you tell me how to get to his house? She glanced behind her. The inscrutable Asian faces were beginning to betray some annoyance at the amount of time she was using to make her order. 1 hour more here. I take you, Master Eta house. An hour later, Valonga was being led through the narrow streets of the oldest sections of Okayama by Kunzai Ozawa, Colonel Sanders' employee and devoted English student. I learned English alone.
Oh my. Congratulations.
By myself.
That was very good. I hope he knows it well.
You got that right.
Do you hear me now?
You talking to me?
No.
You talking to me?
Okay.
He tried every phrase he had learned over the course of a 2-year period. Please, how do you say? Valonga was beginning to feel worn out. Kunzai, are we close to the master's house? Close, come in close. She managed to cut off another stream of questions by making the universal gesture for be quiet. It was twilight in Okayama, and she felt as though she had been transported to a medieval Japan. They passed curtained bar windows, doors where men sat around low tables drinking sake, laughing, talking loud in guttural voices. Jonchiro Taradaki. The contrast between the ultra-polite people she had been exposed to earlier and these rough types was startling. Men with cigarette stubs clenched in the corners of their mouths eyed them cynically, made coarse jokes. Kunzai, what did that man say? Did not understand. Eta slang. Oh, Eta slang. Slang? Slang, you mean? Yes, slang. Difficult to translate.
I bet. You don't wanna.
He call you bitch, hoe. The smell of fish, rice, pickled foods, charcoal smoke on the air lured her away from more questions. She accepted the attention she received, negative or positive. Capoeira Angola had plowed a fatalistic mindset into her head. Some people will like you. Some people will not like you. Play your own game. The music drifting over the low bamboo wall mimicked the sound of fish and rice. Kunzai didn't have to tell her that they were standing in front of Master Eta's house. Kunzai squatted near the wall, motioned for her to join him. Koto, nice, huh? He asked her. Valonga stared at her guide's face. Nice? It was the most banal word she could ever imagine to use to describe what they were hearing. Some of the chords could only be called delicious, others passionately exquisite. For a stretch of 5 minutes or so, they listened to sounds that seemed to be reflections of something beautiful floating on a still pool of water. Nice?
He's got limited English, come on.
Working at McDonald's?
Right, okay.
The chicken
Come
house.
on, yeah, right. Kentucky Fried.
The music seemed to wander at times, as though it were nomadic, searching for a place no one had ever been exposed to. Valonga stood slowly. She knew something about the history of the Koto and quite a bit about Master Bá, but had never Master Eta. Master Bá has been
The other
left
one,
behind
yes.
in
Okay,
Cuba.
yes, please.
But that is what he laid on her mind that she would never forget. She knew quite a bit about the history of the Koto and quite a bit about Master Eta, but had never experienced the music live. Master Kimio Eta, born July 6, 1937. Okayama, Japan, blind since birth, orphaned at 5 years old, apprenticed at 7 years old to a barrel maker, beaten like a beast for every mistake he made, discovered to have a perfect ear for the Koto, purchased from the barrel maker for $25 by an aristocratic family, given the best musical education Japan could offer, recorded by a small but influential Japanese record company, Banzai Productions. Unknown to the West, except for esoteric types like Valonga. Valonga saw Kunzai make a surreptitious study of his watch and suddenly realized she had taken advantage of the young man's time. Kunzai, I'm sorry, I know your family must be worried about you by now. Kunzai Ozawa puffed his chest out with an exaggerated show of machismo. No problem, no problem. Valonga weighed the possibilities impulsively but carefully. Damn, how do I handle this? Kunzai, I want you to knock on the gate and translate what I say to whoever comes to answer, okay? What the hell, why not go for the whole avocado? The sudden light from a lantern being lit behind the wall captured the quizzical expression on Kunzai Ozawa's face. Kunzai, do you understand? Hi, yes, I understand. The plucked notes of the Koto seemed to underscore her hesitant knocking, and then they faded out. She knocked again, feeling like the worst example of what Colonel Sanders' chicken at American Incidents could give birth to. She was about to knock again, her heart pounding almost as loud as the sound she was making on the bamboo gate. The face of a tiny simian appeared at the gate, was slowly open. It took Valonga a few beats to realize it was the face of a woman. She didn't speak, she didn't seem surprised, she simply waited, her expression neutral. Valonga took note of a flurry of discordant notes coming from some inner place. Kunzai, please tell this lady that my name is Valonga Prince, that I am a great admirer of Master Eta's music, and that I would like to meet him. The woman with the monkey face listened to the translation, again without a change of expression, and when it was finished, she answered and slowly closed the gate. Kunzai and Valonga stared at the gate as though they had seen a mirage. The notes of the Koto suddenly seemed distant, ethereal. Well, what did she say? Valonga asked impatiently. Kunzai shook his head from side to side, obviously puzzled. She said, Valonga drove on him, determined to get a translation that wasn't watered down by cultural considerations. She didn't want to be told what he thought she wanted to hear. Kunzai, give it to me straight. What did she say? She said, Master Eta, not at home. Valonga crossed her arms and smiled. Oh, so he wants to play this kind of game, huh? They listened to the master's sound spilling over the wall for a few more minutes and then strolled away. Kunzai, how much money do you make per hour working for the colonel? She had to rephrase it twice before he understood. There were obviously some drawbacks to being self-taught in English. He finally understood and gave her a figure. Look, I'll double that every evening after you get off from work. If you'll come here to Master Eta's house to translate for me, okay? Double?
I understand that. Don't need no translation.
Double? Yes, double. She could see she had touched the right chord. Every man has his price. That's a variation on the theme that Armando Bá used to say. Remember this, Valonga? If you don't remember nothing else, huh? Different people have different rhythms, okay? So you can't assume that one person will respond in the same way another person will respond. You know what I'm saying? You have to work the rhythm to find that, eh? So we come back tomorrow night? Yes, tomorrow night. They strolled out of the Eta district, leaving the pickled smells, the frank odor of fish and rice behind until tomorrow evening. She knew she was different, as they used to say, by the time she was 7. Definitely by the time she was 10. She couldn't explain it, and no one could explain it to her. As a member of a solidly middle-class African-American family in Augusta, Georgia, USA, she knew, as well as her mother and father, that her interests were supposed to be somewhat prosaic, almost pedestrian, to be honest. Her interests were not prosaic, never pedestrian, they were always exotic, different. She became interested in capoeira Angola, the bullfight, drum, the Koto, taekwondo, jazz, writing, the religion, psychology, African American politics, African music, spirituality, cosmic nutrition, photography, Indian music, African American acting, European gourmet cooking, cars, the art of braiding, and not necessarily in this order. Girl was different. When she discovered that she was semi-wealthy, that there was a strong possibility that she wouldn't have to hustle her life away trying to earn the basic necessity, she decided to pursue her dream times. It helped to have parents who could relate to her bohemianism. Mother Prince. Valonga, if it pulls you, go for it, baby. Father Prince. Valonga, I'm a black man that's done made some money. Use what I give you for what's important to you. I picture a black John Wayne. Go for it.
A girl's got to do what a girl's got to do.
Dig it?
Got it.
Her father had passed and left her $500,000 solidly entrenched dollars before she had established SMI, the Stress Management Consultants for International Corporations. She had parlayed the money into $5 million, appointed a hip group of reliable, upper mobile, conscious African Americans to responsible positions, and laid a 3-year sabbatical on herself. They related to her adventure because she had made it a part of company policy. What sense does it make for us to help others manage stress if we don't have a handle on it ourselves? They were family. She checked in once a week, made important decisions that her second in command couldn't handle, and had moved. A number of entrepreneurs had assured her that it wasn't possible to travel and leave a prospering business to subordinates. You don't understand, pal. We're friends who happen to be in the business of business together. And we know how to take care of business. They don't need a Valonga prince standing over them to order them to know what to do and how to do it. 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do for 3 years within a 3-year span? Well, you could trip out in the world and freebase on the heads of those who had something in their heads. The possibility grafted other possibilities onto it, and she was off. She was outside Master Kimio Eta's bamboo walls trying to gain another kind of understanding. Lord have mercy, Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I say it.
Mm-hmm. And
Kozai Ozawa, true to his word, stood like a valiant soldier outside the bamboo gate of Eta's home waiting for instructions. Kunzai, we have a serious problem here, you understand? Hi, I understand.
trying to.
She smiled at him affectionately. She was quite certain after 3 previous visits to the master's house that he clearly understood that they did have a problem. Visit number 1 was clearly a bust. Master Eta, not at home. Visit number 2, Master Eta asleep.
Mm-hmm.
The sound of Master Eta playing in the background. Asleep.
Mm-hmm.
Visit number 3, Master Eta busy. The simian-faced lady opened the gate as before, her face reflecting lights and shadows, but giving no clue to her feelings in regard to their intrusion on Master Eta's privacy. Kunzai, please tell this lady that my name is Valonga Prince. I've made 3 visits to this establishment and that I'd like to talk to Master Eta. It has, if that is all possible. Midway through the translation, the simian-faced lady bowed deeply and performed a 2-arm gesture that indicated that they should enter. Welcome. Kunzai Ozawa met the Valonga's blinks of surprise. Master Eta met them in his guard with a warm smile, bow and handshake. She was stunned when he asked in English, "You remember Le Charles?" Japanese sometimes don't pronounce the English R correctly. It sounds like Le. So he's talking about Ray Charles.
Oh, okay.
She nodded yes, forgetting that he was blind. Oh yes, Ray Charles, I do remember him. He led them through a rice paper panel room, casually touching an item here and there to orient himself. She decided not to question him about his reluctance to let them into his space on their previous visit. Sit, please. He seated them at a black table overlooking his garden. Valonga felt transported. So this is a rock garden. She studied the swirl and warp of the raked rock surface, amazed, bewildered, and enchanted by the effect of the arrangement. Kunzai knelt as though he were in a temple. Master Eta knelt at the table beside them, descending like a calm shadow. He clapped his hands softly once. The effect was strangely bell-like. Valonga felt she was being transported to a mystical place. The simian-faced woman literally oozed onto the scene with a tea tray. Valonga mentally compared her to a snake with a monkey's face.
How cute.
Can you see this?
I can see it. Devoted, no doubt.
Can you see this?
Devoted, no doubt.
The tea was poured. They sipped in silence. She looked Around the space they were in, the master's Koto rested in a corner looking majestic, musically beautiful. I'm going to take us on to chapter 5 because it has to be done. You can't stop at this point because it would be impure.
Okay.
Do not be afraid to be silent or to speak. I must return to the Koto in 30 minutes. This is chapter 5.
Okay.
1. 5.
Yes.
To make sure.
Finger on tip, tongue, okay.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
dig this.
Uh-huh, I know. You play with me. I understand.
He was obviously allowing them to intrude on his practice time. She sipped her tea and stared at the patterns of the rock garden. 30 minutes later, the monkey woman appeared, bowed slightly, and motioned for them to follow her. Valonga and her guide stood and bowed to Master Eta. There was nothing else they could do, it seemed. He acknowledged their departing bow with a slight smile and began to crawl slowly across the floor to his Koto. Outside the gate, Valonga and Conga stared at each other with disbelief. Had they actually been inside the home of Master Eta? Was it a dream?
A dream.
2 days later, at the same time, she stood outside the gate, dampened by a quiet mist. All of the questions she had wanted to ask the master during the course of her first silent visit bubbled around in her brain. The simian-faced woman opened the gate slightly, a neutral expression on her face. She bowed and let her in. As before, the master welcomed her and led her to a space facing the garden. She was determined to put it all into perspective this time, to get what she had came to Okayama for. After 10 minutes of tea sipping and rock gazing, she was beginning to feel hypnotized by the textural changes caused by the mist settling on the rocks in the garden. It was now or never. Master Eta, I must ask you some questions. Do you mind? She stared at the serenity of his profile. He could be a living Buddha. In answer to her question, he made a slight bow from the neck and smiled affirmatively. She took another sip of her tea and struggled to force the words of the question from her head. The mistiness seemed comfortable, almost a blanket of warmth. She felt drowsy. How could I ask to study the Koto with him? She glanced at the Koto in the far corner of the room, waiting. Master Eta, I've come from a distant place to be near you to find out what the master of the Koto thinks and feels, and whether or not you will be willing to teach me. The words seemed to echo onto the misted rocks, gently bounce off the walls of the rice paper. Master Eta clapped softly once, then the woman who served him reappeared with a fresh pot of tea. She smiled at Valonga as she replaced the cold teapot with a hot one. Valonga smiled back, not understanding why she was suddenly being smiled at. Her words were still circling their space. Valonga, Prince? She was startled by the sound of his voice and the full use of her name. Yes, she answered timidly. I know you have come from distant place to find out what the master of the Koto thinks. She had the feeling that he was mocking her, but the serious expression on his face denied her feelings. I know you are interested in the Koto, but I do not think you are prepared to go where the Koto can take you. She sipped her tea and absorbed the answer, turning it around and around in her head. Does he want me to fight for the right to learn the Koto? Or does he really mean what he's saying? Master Eta, how can you be so certain about my capabilities? He slowly turned to face her, his deadened eyes burning holes into her consciousness. Because I am the master of the Koto. Yeah? Silence rang in after his statement as though a curtain had been pulled down between them. She felt the impulse to argue but couldn't find a handle for her argument. His dead black eyes leveled on her face, forcing her to look away. Master Eta, you know I really want to study the Koto with you. I really did. I know. He used the silent spaces as he used the full notes of the Koto. Master Eta, why don't you come out into the world? Give the people a chance to experience the beauty of your music. He seemed to space out on her question for a moment. Valonga, the people have been programmed to ignore the real beauty of music. They only want to hear noise. He spoke quietly and with authority. But don't you think the magic of your music would open them up? No, they are gone. It is too late. Couldn't you give it a try? He released a sad little smile in her direction and nodded. No. Hiroshima, Washington, D.C. She felt like arguing the point but decided to forget it. What kind of argument could she use against his logic? Her legs began to ache from being folded under her body, but she could destroy the moment. The ferns and moss clinging to the side of rocks seemed to grow greener with every moment. The sound of the Koto pulled her deeper into the natural mysteries in front of her. She became a part of the natural picture window she was looking into. She became a part of the mist sprinkling onto the rocks. She became a part of the landscape receiving the mist. Am I hallucinating? The simian-faced woman slid into peripheral view, signaling by her presence that it was time for her to go. Was she his wife? Valonga stood slowly, awkwardly, like a baby beginning to walk for the first time. Master Eta seemed to be playing a special melody for her departure. She smiled and bowed in his direction. He surprised her by smiling and bowing in return. He must have feelings like radar. Sayonara, the woman said in a whispered, musical tone as she closed the gate. Sayonara. Valonga strolled through the narrow streets of Okayama, feeling ebullient but subdued. It was a strangely personal high. She really couldn't focus on what she was feeling that felt so good, but she knew she had nothing to feel sad about. So, finally, completely dampened by the mist, she started toward her hotel. She passed Kunzai Ozawa at work and decided not to pop in on him to exchange chit-chat. What was there to say? She was up early the next day, prepared to take the train to Tokyo, and from there a flight to Seoul, Korea. The phone ringing at her bedside jarred her. Yes? Hi? Valonga Prince? This Master Eta. Master Eta? She sat quietly on the side of the bed. I called to wish you success on your journey to learn from the masters. This is a good thing. I also think you should know that it is not always possible to get what you think you want. I understand, Master Eta. Sayonara, Valonga Prince. Sayonara, Master Eta. She moved from the bed and stood in front of the window, imagining the scene from Master Eta's porch. Each time I release a note from my Koto, it is helping to create a harmony in life that did not exist before.
Mm.
Come with me, please. The mighty Santos will see you now. Valonga follows a man dressed in white through a narrow passageway into a bedroom that looked like a cell. The mighty Santos sprawled on the bed, her head propped up on two snow-white pillows. A small dark woman with sharp Indian chisel features, eyes like glowing marbles. Valonga bowed. It seemed to be the right thing to do. The mighty Santos pantomime. I'm tired. I'm not as young as I used to be. Valonga acknowledged her pantomime statement with a shrug. Who is young as they used to be? And I'm going to stop there right now in order to be able to say, I'm coming back tomorrow. Same time, same place. I mean, who am I talking like?
Thank you. Many characters in
anyway, she's
Brazilian
going.
Night.
She's going to the Mighty Santos in Bahia.
Mm-hmm.
She's this reason the title is Brazilian Nights because she always returns to Brazil to Capoeira Angola and with all these other people around. So it always winds up being like at the end of a beat.
Her heart, whatever, at the end of an adventure, goes back to Bahia. I said.
Right there.
Well, thank you, Odie Hawkins.
Well,
that
thank
was
you, Zola.
quite lovely reading.
Yes.
And mesmerizing, in fact. And so.
I hope so, because that's what they did
I hear
to
you.
me. And I got to tell you, what they did to me was what they did to me is what I'm doing to you.
I appreciate it. Brazilian Nights can be purchased at iUniverse, Barnes &
Should I
Noble.
shoot the cover again?
Yes, please. Amazon. And there we go. Brazilian Nights with Odie Hawkins. And you could go to your local bookstore and say you want a copy of Brazilian Nights by Odie Hawkins. I think it's also an ebook.
Jogo de gente, jogo de fora, jogo capoeira, jogo de Angola, jogo de gente, jogo de fora, jogo capoeira, jogo de Angola, jogo de gente, jogo de fora, jogo capoeira, jogo de Angola, jogo de gente, jogo de fora, jogo capoeira.